Your glasses. Good morning. Well, it's morning here.
Yeah,
Anyway.
it's morning here.
We are in Kazadale, Ohio, and we're just bouncing all around. And it's been a good last week. We had two conferences: a pastors counseling conference last week, and then also a trauma counseling conference last week. And that one was at Central Baptist in Amelia. And then we preached there and also at Kazadale Baptist Church and had a good week.
Yeah, it was a good week.
Yep. So, and we're actually, our topic today is on rest, which is not what we did last week.
No. It's what we rarely do.
We had a crazy week. We had conference Monday, Tuesday, preached Wednesday, traveled Thursday, preached Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So it was a busy. I think I preached over 18 hours Monday to Sunday, and taught. Sometimes people make a distinction there, but anyway. So we had a good weeks, but also this is the weekend coming up of Easter.
Yes.
And so, as an evangelist, not a lot of churches will schedule you do schedule evangelists on Easter Sunday, and so we planned to take off this week and the first part of next week as a bit of vacation. So that's the plan anyway, and we're going to get away. Later today, our plan is to fly down to Orlando, and we have our tickets booked, and we're looking forward to just 4 days away, some downtime and in a warm place. And that's Angela's favorite place, is a warm place.
I like the sunshine.
So,
and it's been cold up here.
It has been mixed, so it'll get like into the 70s, and then it'll drop down into the 50s, and at night sometimes into the 30s and so forth. So
Time to go back south.
yeah, you can tell she's got a little voice thing going on. So anyway, but one of the things that we have talked about many times personally, we've talked with other pastors, missionaries about, is the need for rest, and it's something that is kind of an odd topic amongst, at least amongst independent Baptist pastors, missionaries, and so forth, because every ministry is busy. It's just busy, mm-hmm. And everybody kind of, I think everyone thinks my ministry is the busiest, and
that's what we hear anyway.
Well, yeah, and to them it is, and I get it, because having pastored Beth Haven Baptist for the last 16 years, not only pastoring a church of over 200, but also a church that, had a Christian school, had a Bible college, a seminary, the counseling seminary where I do all the teaching, and a counseling ministry, and 7 foreign missionaries now, and over time that was growing. And then we sent out 5 church planters while we were pastoring, and the addictions homes, and the addictions weekly addictions ministry, and it just definitely, it adds up. And it gets to the point where you feel like, man, if I try and take time off, one of these areas is going to falter, and I'm going to have more problems when I come back than what I have right now.
It's not worth the hassle.
It feels that way. It feels that way. I get that. As a matter of fact, when we stepped down in end of last year, and we took a sabbatical, the month of December, that was something that at 30 years of ministry, the church gave us a 1-month sabbatical, and when we resigned, the people wanted us to go ahead and take that still, so we took it in December at the end of our tenure. And I remember when we went to Belize for the first 2 weeks, and just to get away completely. And it was like 3 days where we got there and I just collapsed. I slept all day every day.
He slept so much, it was so out of character.
It's not like me normally.
Yeah.
And I normally had, probably for the last decade or more, slept 5 to 6 hours a night. Mm-hmm. And I didn't set an alarm. That's just what I slept.
Yeah.
And I would go. And then we get there to Belize, and I just collapsed. I was sleeping, I don't know, 15 hours a day. It was ridiculous.
He would get up and like within a couple of hours, he's like, I need to take a nap.
Yeah.
And he'd go to sleep for a couple of hours.
And I slept for 3 days at least.
Yeah.
And it was a really crazy couple days. And at the end of that third day, I was telling Angela, I don't know why. I just feel like I could sleep all day, every day. And I realized we were sitting at dinner that third evening, and it dawned on me, it was the first time that I wasn't worried that something dumb was going on that I was going to have to deal with back home. And, we had wonderful people, but inevitably when we'd go away, something dumb would happen and it would create problems that I would have to deal with when I got back.
That one person.
And that's the reality. It's like, it's not, you can have 199 unbelievably wonderful people.
No problems.
It only takes one person to create so much problem that you think that you can't handle 199 awesome people.
Yeah. It's true.
And Satan puts those people, I believe, in church, and that's his seat, I believe, sometimes. And I don't mean to talk negatively about people. Like I said, the 99.9% of the people that we have pastored over 30 years, 25 years of pastoring, have been awesome.
So make sure you're not the one.
Well, absolutely. So it's just, but it definitely is that scenario where you feel like you're always dealing with something. You're always dealing with a problem. And sometimes it's not a problem. Sometimes it's a catastrophe.
Yeah.
That's not anyone's fault. Right. Yeah. It's something that you feel like
you have to be there.
You have failed if you're not there.
Yeah.
And, someone's marriage falls apart. Someone dies, some stuff like that.
Because you love them so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it makes it really difficult, though, to have any rest.
That's true.
And when I realized that, it's the first time in 20 years, I pastored for 5 years. We had a short hiatus where we did staff work and evangelism for 5 years, and then I pastored for 20 years. And that 20 years, it was the first time in 20 years that I had not worried while I was on vacation about what was happening back home. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of a crazy moment to me. Yeah. That was a like, wow moment.
A freeing moment.
Well, in some ways freeing in the sense of like,
wow.
The ministry we're in has stresses, so don't misunderstand that. But the stresses are not the same as pastoring.
They're different.
And even when I pastored a small church, even when I pastored a church plant, not the same in evangelism as when I pastored. And I hope evangelists don't get mad at me for saying that. That's just a reality.
Because it has challenges, but it's not the same.
Absolutely has challenges, but I don't have to worry about the church's budget, the church's finances. When I go into a place, I counsel the pastor or minister more to the pastor, and sometimes that involves some counseling and so forth, but more in an encouraging, helpful, way, most edifying most of the time, mentoring, ministering to, so forth like that, and to the church. And it's not infrequent that pastors ask us to counsel people in the church, but it's while we're there. And ultimately, I'm not their pastor. So I can counsel them. When I leave, the weight of what they do with that counsel isn't the same as when I was their pastor.
That's true.
we have the weight of maintaining our vehicle and our home here as we travel and doing the various different things, logistics and scheduling and our own finances.
Where are we going to park? Where are
And
we
the
gonna get gas?
finances of the Hope Ministry, because we manage that, and IBABC. So it's not like we don't have, but managing the finances and the ministry of Hope Ministries International and Independent Baptist Association of Biblical Counselors doesn't feel like the same weight as managing
people.
the church.
Yeah. Managing money is easier than managing people.
It is. For us.
Yeah.
Now, some people might not feel that way. For us, that's how but we've managed the church finances and the church, needs and all that for so long. And so, so don't feel sorry for us. We feel so much lighter.
But we're happy.
We're happy.
Enjoying it.
But we were happy pastoring too. And
yeah.
it was very difficult. It was very sad for us to step down.
Yes.
We knew it was God's will, but we loved what we did, and we loved the people, and we loved the ministry, and so it wasn't like we were
It wasn't easy.
No, it was not easy to get out. But looking back, we realize the weight of that, and that really was what set in there when we were on that vacation.
Yes. Yes.
So,
and we struggled the first couple of days to actually not do stuff. Because we purposed to really rest on that stay.
Normally we have taken...
And there's lots to do there.
Yeah, and normally we've taken vacations where we do a lot. And that's just kind of our nature, our character.
We don't like to sit still.
We're busy people. We're doing things. So even on
we
vacation...
We don't look like we move a lot, but we do.
Even on vacation, though, we would do a lot of things. And I almost feel like it was partly because we needed our mind to be distracted, to not think about potential things that were going on at home.
Right.
And so there's partly that. But there's a need, and I recognized this need maybe a decade more ago.
Yeah.
That there's a need to have rest.
Around 2012, 2013, somewhere around in there.
Yeah. When we were pastoring, when we were starting a church, we started a church up in Oregon. We started 4 churches total ourselves before we pastored at Beth Haven. But when we were starting the church in the Dalles, Oregon, I worked a job and pastored. So I was bivocational. And then I had, but we also had family. Our kids were small, and we spent a lot of time going with our kids.
Yeah, because our job was, we were self-employed, so
right.
we washed windows, so we could schedule ourselves.
Right.
So we didn't have to work around somebody else.
Yeah, but we homeschooled
yes,
too, and so we could run our schedule, and we would take a lot of time where we went and went fishing or went on a hiking. Or we loved hiking. It was great.
There's a whole story with that.
Numerous. And so, but we did take a lot of family time. We didn't take any vacations.
No.
But we took a lot of
family days.
Just days of rest.
We did take one family vacation.
That's ish. My kids called them minications.
Yeah.
We would go to do a ministry thing, and it would be like we'd add a couple days, and on the end of a ministry trip, and so we did that once, and we would do a day or so here and there. But
right.
One time we took a few extra, and we went to Disneyland.
Disneyland, yeah.
And
they worked for 2 summers to go there.
Yeah. So
yeah.
But mostly it was a day here, a day there. We tried to take a day every week, and for the most part, I think we did when they were little. When we lived in Oregon, specifically, where
there was lots to do.
Yeah, we went and did a lot of stuff, but free stuff,
Yeah.
Well, fishing's not free, is it? It's not. but free-ish. And you know, when I went to Beth Haven, I really thought, what am I gonna? I stupidly said this to Angela. What am I gonna do with all my time now that I'm not working?
Mm-hmm.
What am I gonna do with my time? And I had no idea what it was like to pastor. You know, when we went to Beth Haven, 130 people at the time when we went.
Yeah.
And a fair number of those were seniors. And we did hospital visits, so many hospital visits.
Man.
And it felt like we went from not busy at all to insane busy.
Marathon running.
Yeah. So I mean, there's different stages. Was I busy when I was pastoring a small church? Yes, I was busy. I was crazy busy because I was also working a full-time job, but I made time for family stuff. Was I busy when I pastored a church of a couple hundred? Yes, I was insane busy, and it got more and more busy the longer I pastored
but we made time
as
for
ministries
family
were. But we did make time for family stuff. We always took a day a week. And there were some times when we couldn't take a day. The day got interrupted. We struggled to figure out what day worked at first. We tried Mondays. Everyone said, "Oh, Monday's the day a pastor takes off." That was a horrible day for us to
Everybody
take off.
goes into the hospital on Monday.
It was nonstop hospital stuff.
Surgeries.
So we switched our day off to Friday, and that worked for quite a while. And then we started the Hope meetings on Friday night, so we moved our day off to Thursday. And if you're homeschooling, that's fine.
Yeah.
But if your kids are in school, then they, you don't get that time. You know, it's just there's differences. So then we figured out we've got to take some vacations, and kind of, to be honest, we took minications all the way up through our kids being at home, where we would go do a ministry thing. We would take some extra time at the end, 3-4 days to do stuff. And we really did, our kids did a lot of good things. We took our kids on mission trips for vacation. That was their vacation. For us, it was work, but for them, it was vacation. They got to go to the Philippines. They got to go to England. They got to go to Israel.
Seth got to go to Romania.
Seth went to Hungary and Romania. And so, they got to go and see the world to an extent. And for them, it was, and I made sure even while I was teaching, they got to do things while we were teaching. And
even in the States.
Yeah.
Like one time you were teaching a Hope conference and you sent us up to Maine to do a lobster tour, boat tour. And,
right.
And, we drove through those upper states up there. And so, I mean, we always made sure the kids had some fun time while
I think
we
our
were
kids
working.
enjoyed ministry. I don't think that it was, and evidence of that is they all are in ministry. They're in ministry or training for ministry. Yeah. And so, ministry wasn't a drudge to our family. It wasn't a bad thing for our family. It was a good thing for our family. But we went on our first vacation, real vacation, to Belize, I think.
Yeah.
Was that our first, full, real, only vacation?
Right.
That wasn't attached to any
ministry. Yeah.
And we took 2 weeks. No, that first time we took
9 days.
9 days. Yeah, week and a half. It was awesome.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
Easy. I highly recommend it if you ever want to go.
And so then the next year we took a 2-week vacation.
Okay, so
that was even better.
The first time we took vacation, that first week, the first probably 4 or 5 days, it still felt like we still hadn't fully let down.
The second week.
The first, the next several days is when we actually felt like we were resting,
relaxing. And
but then it was time to come home.
Well, the second week we really, the first vacation.
The first vacation.
The second vacation we took 2 full weeks.
Because
that second week was like...
That's where the actual rest come in. Because we learned that from the first time. Yeah. The first real vacation we took.
Right.
Like that first week you're still letting down. You're still, you're turn your phone off.
Yes.
don't turn the Wi-Fi on. Don't turn your phone off,
and tell
or you
everyone,
will not get to
look,
rest.
You take vacations and rest. If you don't want people at work calling you with problems,
turn your phone off.
And I love you all. This is our ministry, not just work. But
get an actual real camera.
Don't let Satan create problems.
If taking pictures is the thing for you, get an actual real camera. Turn your phone off, because if you don't, you will be bugged. That's one of the reasons why we love going out of the country, because the phone doesn't work.
Well, and they said, well, you can get international plans. No.
Nope. We don't want to know.
We don't.
Don't tell me.
Yeah. I'll deal with it when I get back. But it is still, I know the weight's still there. Like I said earlier, the weight's still there.
But that second week, that's where it was at.
And someone said, well, but the ministry, what about the ministry? What about the ministry? The ministry will be there when you get back.
Yeah.
You have problems while you're there, they'll be there when you get back. It's just
true.
the truth.
They're not going to go away.
They're not going away, because that's what ministry is in many ways. Ministry is helping people deal with problems.
Yep.
And so, but you've got to take some rest out of that, and even though it might not all go away, it definitely will help you long term, withdraw the level of stress. I highly recommend rest, actual rest.
Yeah.
After experiencing that now.
It's hard to do. It's hard
difficult
to make yourself do, but you need it. Your body needs it.
Yeah, your mind needs it and your body needs it.
Yeah.
But a friend of ours, Brother Gibson, Moore Gibson, said, he said, I know that the church can make it without me, but I don't want them to know that, So, and I get that. That's a normal way of thinking too, and all that. But at the same time, in the long term, your church needs to know that you can, that they can make it without you to a certain extent. I think part of the problem is we create a dependence on us.
Yeah.
And we don't actually want them to depend on us. We want them to depend on the Lord.
Yes.
And I think that psychologically matters in this whole process. Is if they can't live without me, then they're depending on the wrong person. I have developed a dependence on me instead of on Christ.
Right.
There are always going to be people in the infant stages of faith that are in that spot. Mm. But if they're staying there, we're not doing something right. They have to develop a dependence on Christ. And sometimes the only way to develop a dependence on Christ is to have nowhere else to turn.
True.
Sometimes the pastor needs to be unavailable in order for the people to realize that Christ is enough. That
I have to depend upon God to fix this problem. Because I can't get a hold of my preacher, and I can't do this, and I can't do that.
I know that sounds counterintuitive to a certain extent, but I'm there to minister. Yeah, but ultimately, their direction should always be to Christ and not to us. And it's got to become that way. And we have to see that.
Yeah.
And I think seeing that helps also to be able to free us to take that downtime, that rest.
Yeah.
Jesus often withdrew for rest. Not for activity rest, not for entertainment rest, for real down rest. When Elijah was dealing with depression, one of the things we see God did is he fed him and he slept. And that was what he needed. His physical body was worn down, and that was creating a problem for him. And I think in ministry, sometimes that is the problem. We're so worn out that we don't have the spiritual strength to go forward and fight the downside of the physical body and the weight of the ministry. And we need that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I totally need to rest on the beach in Belize and eat Mexican food. Totally.
Yeah. Absolutely. No doubt.
If you ever wonder, my favorite place to go is Belize.
It's true.
Wonder. Yeah.
But so let's let's talk about a moment then, because sometimes there's other barriers to vacations. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the barrier isn't taking time off. Sometimes it's the money to take time off.
Right.
So what are some things that we did that helped us when financially because we did some staycations there at home when the kids were home. Also, not just mission trips.
Turn this off.
Okay, so when we were taking Fridays off,
no phone Friday.
No phone Friday. Every day, every Friday,
yep.
No phone Friday. We turned off the phones. We told the church.
Because you will not get rest if this is on.
Yeah.
You will not get rest if you're on social media because somebody will see you on social media and they'll text you. You will not get rest. Turn the phone off.
Yeah. And so that helped a lot.
Yes. That was the I would say the number one, the biggest game changer in our staycations that we had. Yeah.
Yeah. It was good.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is you're taking time off, but you're leaving the leash on so people can jerk your leash back and you don't actually get any downtime.
Because you see that name pop up and you're like, oh, they could be in a crisis, or, oh, so-and-so's cousin was, near death and here they are calling, I'm sure they died, and, all of that kind of stuff, all the pulling on those heartstrings, and you just got to rest.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to minister to them in their greatest time of need if you do not rest.
So what we did is we would say on Friday, if you have a real emergency, call your deacon. We assigned our deacons to different people. Different people were under different deacons as far as that goes for ministry groups. And so we said, if you have a real emergency, call your deacon, and they'll be there as far as to communicate with about the need, and that worked.
Yeah, it did work
very well, actually.
And I know sometimes there's churches that aren't like our church was big, so we had numerous deacons, but I would dare say there's not even the smallest of church that doesn't have that one faithful member that you can trust in, that you could say, hey, I'm going to take a day or two off. I'm going to tell the people if they have a problem, call you. You're spiritual. You know how to pray with them.
Yeah.
And then when I get back off of my vacation or my time off,
or my day off,
I will call you and you can fill me in.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Nothing.
So that was a huge game changer for us when we started doing that.
Yeah.
We did a lot of day trips. When we were doing that, we would pack a picnic.
Lunch. Yeah.
And we would drive to a state park. We would drive various different places just to explore. We'd drive to a town that we'd never been to, and we'd kind of walk through. And sometimes we found unexpectedly cool things.
Yeah.
And sometimes we just
found duds, but that's okay.
But we were
that.
but we were resting, even though we were maybe doing some small activities.
Yeah.
We were resting. We were not focused on work, and that was a big thing.
Yeah. We would have when we lived in the country, we saved and we got a pool. So in the evening times or whatever, we would just go out and relax. We'd have barbecue with the kids, or when we lived in town, we would set up we
did the same thing. We had and we bought a pool from Walmart.
Yeah.
Was the 4 foot.
Yeah. It wasn't anything fancy.
But it was enough for us.
Yeah.
And it was a
just
couple $100.
Just to get away and I don't know. It was
on our day off. That was a huge, many times during the summer, particularly. That's what we would do is,
in the winter,
grill.
We had a little fireplace in our house in town, and we would just sit in there and
talk and
rest and talk and
But
you have to
you have to disconnect.
You can't be on social media. You can't be surfing. You can't be listening to YouTube. You can't be doing that stuff. That's not rest.
I think psychologically the problem is we have grown accustomed quickly to the idea that everybody in the church has to have 24/7 access to us, and that is such a today thought. When we started in ministry, we had a phone attached to the wall. When we were gone from the house, no one could get a hold of us until we got back. And that's, when we got that answering machine, people would leave us a message. And we would get back to them. And before that, quite frankly, and you say before that, we weren't before that, okay? We're not that old. But before that, they didn't have phones.
No.
But they still had pastors.
Yeah.
And so, well, what did they do? Well, they had to wait till they could get to see the pastor to talk about the issue.
Church time.
They had to go to his house. I mean, it's a real issue if they actually come to your house and not just, text you, I'm in crisis. Everything has become a crisis, and every pastor has to be available in an indefinite, infinity amount of time. And it's not real. It's fake. It's a lie.
Do not disturb is the greatest thing ever because it still allows you to get your messages. They still come through, but they don't ding unless you open your phone to look at them.
But you don't have to. You don't even have to check that.
But they're there for you when you get off your vacation. They're there for you.
It's something I think psychologically Satan has deceived us with. That everyone deserves 24/7 access to us. And he's stolen rest. He's stolen our peace and our downtime.
Yeah.
Because there's never a moment where the potential of crisis isn't available. And can I say, it's always theoretically been there. But people have to weigh their own... They used to have to consider their own being put out themselves to get the crisis to you. Like they would have to leave where they were and bring the crisis to you, or send someone to bring the crisis to you. It was a lot more difficult, and so a lot fewer things were crisis.
Right.
A lot fewer things were...
Not everything was a drama.
And sometimes it wasn't even crisis. It was like dumb, at 11:30 at night, someone calling, Pastor, can you meet me up at the church? I left my Bible at the church. Like, you don't need your Bible at 11:30 at night. Use your phone. You probably got 7 Bibles in your house. But feeling like you have to run every time someone wants something. And a pastor, a missionary, does need to learn to not succumb to that that type of mentality. Because a lot of the rest that we don't have is the result of that type of thinking, the thinking that everything's a crisis, everything has to be dealt with immediately. Right. We're in the immediate culture. Instant access, instant everything. And I think that the cell phone has done more to increase stress in ministry than maybe anything in history. Yep. So while you're listening to this podcast on your cell phone. We're deriding the cell phone.
Because it steals joy.
It really does. It does. And there's nothing wrong with putting it away. And
I will have to say, that was probably our biggest fight that we had when we were learning was this stupid cell phone. Like, don't be on your phone. When you're with me, be with me. When you're on vacation, be on vacation. Don't be on your phone. Same for me. Like, put the phone away. And it was hard as a mom because, like, when we would travel, I would be like, well, I want to be able to talk to the kids. I want to be able to know they're okay. They're going to be fine.
Right.
I didn't have to know. So, put the phone away.
Put the phone away.
Yeah.
If you want rest.
If you want rest.
If you don't want rest, keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
But rest is good.
I will tell you, physically, rest was the best thing for us. Your blood pressure came down.
Yeah, my blood pressure
came down.
My blood pressure was consistently in the 150 to 180 over 85 to 90 something, constant. And then I stepped down from pastoring the month after in January after we had the month sabbatical. I went to the doctor in that January. 111 over 72.
And we joke that the stress of pastoring, which that is some of it, but I guarantee you probably most of that was due to resting.
We just rested.
We rested for a month.
So this week, while we had such a busy last week, this week, we've Monday, Tuesday, today's Wednesday, we did stuff. We did stuff we needed to get done. But it was on our pace, at our time. And we had fellowship with people. We've answered phone calls here and there. But we haven't focused on the phones. We haven't focused on that. And then we're leaving today to get 4 days of downtime down in Orlando.
Sunshine.
And getting some rest.
Yeah.
And it's a thing that you need to take serious consideration to. And you might not be able to go to Orlando. You might not be able to go to Belize. You can still get away. You can still turn off the phone.
Make a picnic in your backyard.
Make a picnic. Grill something and leave the world behind for a day. Leave the world behind for a couple days. It's going to be okay. The world was here before you. It will be here after you. Killing yourself over everything is not going to fix anything. It's gonna be net. The same problems are gonna be there.
Yeah.
People aren't gonna die without you. At that, well,
they may die without you,
but not because of you, not because you're not available. Okay. It's just. It's going to be okay, and it's okay to take vacations.
And don't feel guilty. Don't feel guilty about it. The Lord rested. The Lord had Elijah rest. The Lord gave the disciples time to rest.
We purposely started putting on social media stuff we were doing on vacation.
Yeah.
And at first we were like, oh, I don't know if we should do this, but then we thought, other people need to know it's okay that we believe it's okay to rest. We had missionaries, not just our own missionaries, but other missionaries out of other ministries tell us things like, I can't take a vacation because if people find out that we took a vacation, they'll drop our support. That's
dumb.
If you're a pastor and you think that way, you're crazy.
Yeah.
You're perpetuating burnout in ministry.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. A missionary should be no different than a pastor in that they need a day off every week. They need to take a vacation. Living on a foreign field is not constant vacation.
No.
There's extra stresses from living there. But let me say to missionaries, you don't have the hardest ministry in the world either. And all of us think that. All of us think, since I'm on the foreign field, my ministry's way harder than the ministry of pastors. It's not. I know men who have been on the foreign field and who now pastor, even not large churches, but just average sized church here in America is 60-ish, who tell me I would go back to the foreign field in an instant if the Lord was to call me. It was so much easier, even with the language barriers or other things like that. The pace of life is so much different. It is different than here in America. And I'm not saying pastoring's harder than being a missionary, because it's just a different hard. They're both hard. They're just different hard. And
both need rest.
Both need rest. That was what I was trying to say.
Both need rest. And don't condemn each other for resting.
Oh, goodness.
Hello.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you ought to not work.
No.
And I believe in work. I believe 6
lazy.
days shall a man labor. But
also rest.
But also rest. That seventh day
was for rest.
That's what the Lord said. He knew, God knew when He created us that we needed rest. And we needed that down. And the Sabbath was created for man. He specifically created something for our rest. He did not create cell phones. The devil did. That's a new theology.
That's the new theology.
Yeah. So God, from the very beginning of the Bible, emphasized the need for rest. And yet we think somehow we're exempt from that. Somehow because we're Baptist, because we're a preacher, because we're a missionary, that well, we don't need rest, and the reality is we do. We need rest. You need rest. You need that downtime. So I'm just in some ways encouraging you. Maybe you just need permission in some way in your mind to be able to take a day off, to be able to rest and take a vacation. Whatever it is there.
What is that statement we heard the preacher say about
Micaiah Stanley
Yes.
at a pastor's meeting.
You knew what I was thinking.
I love this statement. He said, 20 years from now, no one in your church will remember or care that you took a vacation, but your wife and your kids will. And that's so true. Don't sacrifice your kids. Don't sacrifice your marriage. There's too many preachers whose ministries are just destroyed because they didn't take time with their wife.
And they lose their kids.
They lose their kids. And ultimately they lose their ministry, the thing that they focused on the most. There's nobody in this world that that you're to minister to before your spouse. This is my first ministry. My second ministry is to my kids. Every other ministry comes in line behind that. You say, well, no, when you're called to pastor, when you're called to pastor, one of the requirements is that you have a right relationship with your wife and a right relationship with your kids. That's part of the qualification, which makes it first. Makes it first. And it just is, it's heartbreaking for us to see so many ministry families falling apart, marriages, kids, and not all of it is a lack of rest. Not all of it is. Sometimes it's a lack of the spiritual attention that's just needed there. Okay, but rest is part of that spiritual attention, and not giving Satan access because you're so tired that you're spiritually worn down and not able to
And can't fight.
to fight like you need to. I don't rest from my devotions, by the way.
No. And we don't rest from church.
No.
We go to church.
We go to
even
church.
when we go to Belize or wherever, we go to church.
Yeah.
Because we're
We
called
worship
to do
God.
that as a
We worship God.
yeah.
And that's part of our rest. Part of our rest is resting in Him, resting, having devotions. I feel like when I'm on vacation, my prayer time's even a little sweeter. My devotion time is
Because you
is a
have
little
time to
clearer.
really do it.
I'm not rushed to in any fashion. I can just spend time with the Lord, and it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, any closing thoughts?
No, just take time to rest. It's wonderful. I think out of all the advice that we've received over the years with pastoring and all of that is the number one best advice, because it just helped us so much.
Yeah. Amen. Well, all that being said,
We're gonna go rest.
so we looked. We're going to Orlando. That cost us a little bit, but we looked up all the free stuff to do.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Free stuff in Orlando. Woo!
Sunshine.
Sunshine in Orlando.
80 degrees. It's supposed to be 80 degrees and sunny the whole time we're there. Which I'm excited about.
She needs the sun.
I do. I'm needing it bad. It's been too cold up here. Cold and dreary.
And then we come back and we're right into
Cold and dreary.
no, we're right into some conferences.
Yeah, we are.
And a Hope conference, a missions conference, a Hope conference, and a lot more travel. We're going to be traveling in the coming weeks. With a revival, and then we travel across to Colorado.
That'll
from
be
Ohio
our
to Colorado.
longest pool that we've had.
Yeah. So anyway, but we're thankful that God has given us this ministry and given us this work, and we're excited about it. And we know that in the midst of busy times, we can rest in Him, and that there are also times that we need to take a physical rest. And so hopefully this has just been an encouragement to you to do that. And
to sleep in.
sometimes that's what it is, sleeping in.
Yeah.
Yep. So anyway,
All right.
God bless.
Have fun.